Anna Freud was the daughter of the founder of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud. She was born in Vienna in 1895, when her father's radical theories of sex and the mind were starting to make him famous across Europe. She became a schoolteacher and then a psychoanalyst, and pioneered the treatment of children, establishing clinics and nurseries for children who were war victims, survivors of the Holocaust, or just generally troubled by their lives. Perhaps most importantly for us, she is our finest guide to what we call defense mechanisms, which she described best in her 1936 book, The Ego and the Mechanisms of Defense. The book laid out for the first time the core idea that we instinctively try to protect our ego, our acceptable picture of who we are, with a variety of defenses. The problem is that in the act of defending ourselves against pain in the immediate term, we harm our longer-term chances of dealing with reality, and therefore of developing and maturing as a result. Anna Freud highlighted 10 key types of defense mechanisms. Firstly, denial. Denial is when we don't admit there is a problem. We think things like, I enjoy drinking very much and I sometimes get quite bad hangovers, but I can handle it. If other people try to get us to face up to the problem, we react very badly. The immediate survival mechanism, the short-term instinct to feel all right about oneself, means refusing to recognize our need for change. Projection. In projection, you attribute a bad feeling you have in someone else. For example, you might develop the impression that your partner is going to be extremely critical if you don't make more money this year than last. But in reality, they may be quite understanding and sympathetic. The harsh, bitter thoughts are not in your partner, they're in you, and they came from, let's say, your mother. But you've given the negative feelings, which you don't want to recognize in yourself, to someone else. That's projection. Turning against the self. This is when we think badly of ourselves as a way of escaping from an even worse thought, that someone we hope loves us doesn't actually. Anna Freud learnt that children do this a lot. A child abused by a parent will typically seek refuge in a thought which, though grim, is less awful than the alternatives. He or she will think, I must be bad and worthless, that's why my parent is behaving this way towards me. So really the thought goes, I still have a good parent. It's painful to think we're bad and worthless, of course, but for a fragile child especially, it can feel less catastrophic than the alternative, thinking we're in the hands of a parent who doesn't care. Sublimation. We sublimate when we redirect unacceptable thoughts or emotions, often about sex or violence, into higher and finer channels. Many artists, especially musicians, have used sublimation to turn negative life experiences like drug addiction, social ills, family problems, and so on, into popular and resonant works of art. Sublimation is still a defense mechanism, but it's one of the very best. Regression. Anna Freud believed that when things become tough, we often regress to a way of behaving that we practiced when we were younger. In particular, we do what children typically do, which is evade responsibility. It is for the child always someone else's fault, usually the parents, and they should put it right. In regression, we adopt an infantile sense of our own purity and innocence. The rest of the world is to blame. They should sort it out. For Anna Freud, it's normal for many otherwise perfectly sane adults to go through regressive moments when under pressure. It only becomes a problem when it goes on too long. Rationalization. Rationalization is a smart-sounding excuse for our actions or what happens to us, but it's carefully tailored to get the conclusion we feel we need, that we are innocent, nice, worthy. After being rejected for a job, for example, the defensive rationalizer will say, it was a boring company, or I never wanted the job anyway. They may have very much desired the job, but it can be agonizing and deeply humiliating to admit this to the ego. Intellectualization. Intellectualization is similar. The scarring sense of loss, guilt, betrayal, and anger on breaking up with a partner might be neutralized by thinking a lot about the history of the late Roman Empire or the government's plans to raise interest rates. Many intellectuals are not merely thinking a lot, they are also guilty of intellectualization, which means making sure their researches keep a range of more pertinent issues at bay. Reaction formation. Reaction formation involves doing the opposite of our initial unacceptable feelings. Someone who has a strong interest in the sexuality of teenagers, say, may join a religion with a particular emphasis on abstinence among the young. We're often guilty of reaction formation in childhood. When we're embarrassed about being attracted to a classmate, we might be mean or aggressive towards them instead of admitting that we like them. Displacement. Displacement is the redirection of a usually aggressive desire to a substitute recipient, usually someone who is less threatening or easier to blame. So a classic case is someone who may feel threatened by their boss, comes home and starts shouting at their partner. Fantasy. Fantasy avoids problems by imagining them away or disassociating oneself from reality, from daydreaming to reading literature to looking at porn. We use these moments to transport ourselves from the threatening world to find comfort in an elsewhere. Anna Freud's tone when writing about defense mechanisms is tender and generous. She knows these defenses are quite natural, but she also observes how many difficulties they bring in their wake. They hold back our careers, they're boring for others, and they hurt those who love us. Freud argued that most of us employ at least 5 of her defense mechanisms every day without being in any way aware of it. She wrote her great book as a way of helping us to see a little better what we're constantly doing, in the hope that we can in future be a little more mature and a little less, as we still say in unknowing tribute to her, defensive towards those around us.